there's this fancy factual stat that gets thrown around out there about how if you're not a certain age and you haven't won, if you get to a certain age and you haven't won a Super Bowl as a quarterback, then you're probably not gonna. Is it true? I'm Mike Fisher, your trusty and trusted reporter. This is the Fishbowl. That is the Star. And this is Fish at 6, like live. We appreciate you playing along with us in your comments below. Get in, get on, be good, bring something of intellect to the table. And yes, I will be reading and reviewing your comments as I always do. A lot of times I do that at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm getting up to go to the restroom. Dak Prescott has yet to win a Super Bowl. I think you're aware of that. And that actually, in a lot of ways, puts him in pretty good company, which is very much the point of Jerry Jones endorsing the Cowboys quarterback of being not only Super Bowl capable, but predicting that he's going to win one or more. Quote from Jerry, Mr. Media, just between us girls, I think there's a handful or more of quarterbacks playing who haven't won a Super Bowl, who will win a Super Bowl. I think Dak's one of those. There is a list. First of all, there's a good list of good quarterbacks, or even better than good quarterbacks, who haven't won a Super Bowl. So the impatience for Dak, what about Lamar? What about Josh Allen? What about Joe Burrow? What about Justin Herbert? What about Kirk Cousins? What about Jalen Hurts? And by the way, you can come back and say, well, yeah, but at least they made it to... That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about winning a Super Bowl, which in Cowboy Nation is all that matters. And if you don't agree or understand or haven't had that occur to you quite that way, ask yourself, whatever happened to Danny White? You don't have to be too much of a Cowboy historian to know this. Danny White was extremely successful here relative to the rest of the football world. But he wasn't Roger. And now in Cowboy lore, he's not Roger and he's not Troy. And so he just gets passed by. We don't even think about it. And it's unfortunate, maybe even unfair, but that's where the Cowboys have put their bar. And that's where Cowboy Nation, America's team, that's where the bar is. You have to have won a Super Bowl as a Cowboy quarterback or you really don't matter. When we rattle through, if you rattle through Cowboy quarterbacks, really, really, really successful ones, good ones, notable ones, Eddie LeBaron, Don Meredith, Craig Morton is forgotten here. Roger, of course, Danny White, Aikman, Tony Romo is hardly forgotten, but he didn't accomplish what must be accomplished. He actually didn't even come close. So some of those guys are in this same kind of grouping. Can you predict that Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow? See, here's where Jerry's going to be wrong on suggesting that a bunch of them are going to do it. A handful or more are going to win a Super Bowl. Okay? Lamar, Josh, Joe, Justin, Cousins, Jalen, and Dak. That's 7 quarterbacks. Okay? Most of those, let's see. A bunch of those guys will be on the verge of being out of the league in 8 years. So there's a 7-year window for those 7 guys to win it, and that means nobody else can win it, including Patrick Mahomes. Okay? That's a bad bet, Jerry. It's a bad bet that those 7 guys are all going to win a Super Bowl in the next 10 years. Is it a bad bet that Dak is one of them? It hurts his chances when Jerry's taking his more is less approach. This year's Cowboy roster is not going to be as good as last year's Cowboys roster, and therefore Dak's chances of winning the Super Bowl on paper today even though the Cowboys offense looks fine on paper in so many ways. On paper, the odds of Dak winning a Super Bowl in 2024 are lower than the odds of him winning it last year, entering last year, and certainly entering the playoffs last year. When picking the Cowboys to go to the NFC Championship game, entering the Green Bay game last year was a really very smart bet. You had every reason to feel good about that, and now you feel awful. So Jerry is predicting that Dak will win a Super Bowl in his Cowboy football life. And there are those who are responding to this by saying, if you don't win it by the age of 29 or 30, whatever, you're never gonna. And there's some historical truth to that. It leans that way. But let's think about it another way, and let's recognize John Elway. Of course, John Elway did it as a bus driver. Peyton Manning did it as a bus driver. Their greatest glories in terms of Super Bowl success came well after. John Elway was incredible in his younger days. He was a one-man show in Denver, but the rest of the show wasn't good enough. Late in his career, he was not a one-man show. He was just a bus driver. Other players were the show, including, of course, our own, old buddy DeMarcus Ware. So you can win a Super Bowl when you're 31, 32, and 39. Of course you can. I bet you Patrick, I won't bet you. The smart money says Patrick Mahomes is going to win a Super Bowl in his 30s. That'd be a smart bet right now. I don't know that it's a particularly smart bet to say that Dak's going to. At this moment, this organization's path is not pointing that way. And here's the other thing that Jerry deserves to be quizzed on regarding Dak. Dak's going to win a Super Bowl. I feel it. I promise it. I guarantee it, kind of. A fish head in Cowboy Nation, 70,000 strong, is watching this and listening to this and has every reason to wonder, Jerry, if you really believe that Dak Prescott is going to win you a Super Bowl, why don't you pay him? What's the hesitation? Why isn't the contract done yesterday? You're essentially saying he's Lamar, he's Josh, he's Joe, he's Justin, as it sits here right now, as we sit here right now, he makes substantially less than they do. So they're all $50 million quarterbacks, and they're going to win a Super Bowl, says Jerry. By the way, every guy on that list outside of Kirk Cousins will probably eventually be a $60 million quarterback. Just like Dak will eventually be, whether it's here or somewhere else. So if you're really that confident, Jerry, why don't you put your fat wallet where your confident mouth is? Because if you're predicting that Prescott will lead this franchise to a Super Bowl and soon, a win and soon, there's just not much reason to drag your feet, especially considering the fact that if you did the Dak deal today, it would give you $20 million worth of more room, and then you wouldn't have to try to do more with less. Unless, as I've pointed out, that there's a blow-it-up plan. Do what you can in 2024, and then rebuild in 2025. With or without Dak Prescott. And use the $20 million. Even if you did Dak Prescott. Keep him. Give him the deal. And don't spend the $20 million this year. Because this isn't really an all-in year in that kind of way. I don't know the direction that thing's going. I wish, for your sake, that I knew that the direction that Jerry Jones is saying that Dak's going was accurate. What I'm afraid the Dak era history lesson will be, I think we're going to look back at 2023 and say that was the one. That was the one in the Dak era where they had the team. They didn't have to play Aaron. Think about this. Because there's been other times and other teams, and they didn't have to play Aaron Rodgers. They opened at home where they never lose. They were notably healthy, right? They lined up their best guys that day against Green Bay. They played a young underdog that in the end didn't know it wasn't supposed to win. So it went ahead and did it. Cowboys blew a golden opportunity. That was a Super Bowl caliber team. Right now, the Dallas vibes are not very positive, and maybe, frankly, that's one of the reasons for Jerry's grand pronouncement. We've learned this by now, haven't we? That the Cowboys sometimes seem like a marketing company that plays football on the side. Maybe Jerry's saying this because he believes it. Maybe Jerry's saying it because it's the precursor to paying Dak Prescott, or maybe Jerry's saying it because this keeps the Cowboys on the front page to say that Dak Prescott's going to win a Super Bowl. I think Dak is one of them, Jerry insists. I'm firm there. He's one of the ones who can. And he's saying he's one of the ones who will, which again leads to the question. If you think Dak Prescott, if you promise Dak Prescott, if you know Dak Prescott is going to take you to a Super Bowl, why wouldn't you pay him that way? Fish out.